Welcome to the 3BA podcast, where bourbon boners and being awesome isn't just a catchy tagline, but categories in which we discuss different topics every single day. My name's Garrett, and I'm going to be your host along this unique journey through the bourbon and whiskey craze, men's health, and everything that life throws at you in between. On this particular Wednesday episode of the Badass of the Week, we have a new Badass of the Week. He's to my right, famous amateur DJ / professional DJ, friend of mine for a long time, great kickboxing, MMA impersonator, Mr. Zach Williams. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me.
Nice to see you, buddy.
Great to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. We've been trying to do this for a while.
Yeah, too long.
It has been too long. So I know you know about the podcast, and I know you know what I talk about, what we talk about on this thing, but you didn't know, and you can tell the people, it was a little bit of a surprise. You got the Baddest of the Week award.
I did. I didn't even know. I'm surprised. All right.
So cool. The Baddest of the Week award goes like this. I give it out to people who I believe are doing something in their lives or with others or for others that are serving, that are not just self-serving, but they're for other people. They have different stories. They come to us in unique backgrounds and different avenues, and they all have something different. There's been different people on this already. There's been part of the other half of this podcast. There's a gentleman who's been a Columbus City police officer. There's been a bar owner, and now we have DJ extraordinaire.
All right.
And I'm telling you all that because you're in good company. There's a lot of good people out there who are the badasses of the week. And I say that because this is for you. This is me to say, I thought of you. I really had. I thought of you a while ago. You have a very unique story, which we're going to ask about here in a second, but I'm just going to highlight some things, and I want you to interject wherever you see fit.
Sure.
Zach and I met, would you say, was it at trivia at the Porch? No, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
We go way back.
We do.
I started the service industry for the first time ever in the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. I had just moved back from Wisconsin at the time. And that's kind of where the story unraveled from there. I started becoming a server, and then.
Where was it? It was the wrong place. Go ahead. I said the wrong place. But
was
where
it the Pint Room in Dublin?
Pint Room. Yep. There's a place called the Pint Room. And I happened to come in. It might have even been on a date at the time. I don't know if it was a date or if I was just in the Pint Room, but I think it was a date because I met you and somebody else who maybe will be on the podcast occasionally, Ryan. But I met you guys there. We became friends. I remember you even asking, because at the time I was hosting trivia elsewhere.
Yeah.
I was talking about doing, possibly something with the bar you were working at. And I remember you just kind of asking me outright. You're like, "What do you do? What do you mean? You just talk in front of people?" And I went, "Yeah." And it just, that's how you open the conversation with me. And here's why I say that, because I remember meeting you and having you just be very open and natural and just kind of, "Hey man, tell me about you." And I think, you don't know I'm going to say this, but I think that's one of your qualities. Yeah. And it's something that I've known about you for a very long time. You're very engaging. You're good at your craft. It's since led you into a lot of different directions.
It has.
In many different directions, and we're going to get into those. But we met, and I want to point this out. You made me feel like I was the most important person. You were just asking about everything I did. You were asking about what drove me and the passion that I had for my craft, and just what got me into being a host of a trivia game, right? Mm-hmm. And you said, you're like, you know what, that's crazy. And we talked about you even possibly doing it sometime with me, right? That was kind of how it started. From then we moved on, right? So I tell a story that I'm going to tell now, and I want you to interject wherever you feel it necessary.
Bring it on. I'm ready for anything now.
You kind of know. We talked about this. We talked about this recently. So met Zach, worked in the bar I frequented. Like I said, might have been on a date. I don't remember specifically, but we talked. I had come back a few times. It wasn't the only time I'd ever seen you, right? So we had, at this point, let's fast forward in our initial meeting to now we know each other's names, right? And we see each other. I remember later on in that year, it was Halloween, and we decided that I say a group of friends of mine, we were going to dress up. Not that I don't think you should dress up. I think you should dress up as long as you want. Throughout your entire life, you should always dress up. This particular point in my life, I was the dress up and go out and drink kind of weird era in your lifetime, right?
I still am.
Yeah, you still, you still are. And I remember exactly where I was. It was at a different bar, go figure. And I remember walking into said bar, and out of the patio door walks one of the most pristine, put together, identical twins of Conor McGregor that I've ever seen in my life. And as you jumped up onto a wall in your very, very horrible accent,
It was so bad.
it was so bad.
It's
and you had a few adult pops at that point in time.
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh, Garrett. And I was like, Zach? What? Or am I looking at Connor? It was very good. Your impression was god awful, but your costume on point. Go ahead. You can tell. I mean,
Oh man, that was. I remember I started kind of getting the you look like this guy kind of thing while serving for Pint Room for a while, and that was when I did a drastically horrible man bun, and I was also growing my facial beard at the same time, and people harassed me for the man bun forever, and I just wanted to do it for myself and say that I could finally grow long hair, and it could not. So eventually the long hair went away, and then the Mayweather and the McGregor boxing match came about, and that's when I think that's what really sent McGregor over the top in terms of his monetary worth and exposure.
Notoriety, everything,
Everything. I mean, that's what set him up for just pretty much the remainder of his career.
Sure.
For better or for worse. But that was when I was like, okay, if there's going to be a time for me to ever do this level of impersonation, like this is the time. So I think it probably was in August where I decided I want to go for him as for Halloween. And I started looking into maybe like somehow finding like someone to paint my chest. Well, turns out there's a company online that I found that did temporary tattoos, and it was actually relatively cheap, and I got them well before October, and I remember just being like, all right, I got to work out. I got to play the part. I just got to get as ripped as I can. And he's 5'7", I'm 5'11", so I'm already going to be a little more lankier than him.
Yeah.
And I think that particular year, I think I won at least about $500 in cash prizes.
For lookalike
in two bottles of vodka,
Yes.
I think. And maybe a couple phone numbers. But
I hope so.
Who knows?
When I say, and we might have to try to
funny.
find a picture to flash up for the people who are watching, but for the people who are listening, it was spot on. Now, I jokingly told you that I heard the most horrible accent in the world. He did work on himself, his physique, and the tattoos, and got every part of the look down. But your accent, oh my gosh.
My Irish accent's horrible.
As the night went on, it just kept getting worse.
Well, yeah, as soon as the alcohol starts flowing. And I remember, I tell people all the time, and even like every St. Patty's Day rolls around.
Yeah.
And so I'll just do like a white t-shirt tucked into some jeans and a gold watch, and like,
just try to throw it out
kind of like finesse it. And it's all fun and games up until like midnight, 1 o'clock, where every drunk asshole wants to just beat the shit out of you. And
Come on, Connor,
and then
I wanna fight.
exactly,
Yeah.
and then it's not a joke anymore.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting in the car. I'd drive in the car to places, and I would literally listen to interviews of him and and I just could never do it. An Irish accent was never anything that I could do well, and I'm gonna stay in my lane on that.
Listen. I only poke fun and bring that up because it was spot on. The costume, the outfit, the whole thing. It was great. You did try to recreate it a couple years later, and it wasn't bad. I just remember the very first initial time was just.
Yeah,
Great job.
I went for a round two, primarily because again he made himself re-popular again for another fight that he did, and I was going to a really big music festival that year, and I was like, all right, well, let's try it again. Let's do like a round two situation, and it just like lacked its luster. There was just something so special about doing it that 1 year.
It was great,
and
man.
I don't think that I'll ever be able to return back to it. It should have been a one and done situation.
Listen, it was great. I bring it up because that was like an episode of a reality show that you never forget, or an episode of a TV show, or it was just so surreal to me. This guy coming out of a bar and jumping at you, or obviously you'd had a few at that point in the night, but you jumped up onto a wall and then you like looked at me and you're using your Irish horrible drunken accent and you pointed at me. You're like, Garrett, and it was just. It was great.
That whole year in general, that was 2017.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, 2017 was like a very pivotal year for me in general.
Yeah.
I had the best year ever that year.
I'm impressed. I'm glad you can.
What a way to finish it.
That was October was great. So fast forward after that. So then when did you decide? So I know I said DJ extraordinaire. He actually made a career choice and took a very, very big leap. And I'm going to let you tell that part of the story, but I bring it up because there's a couple things. On this podcast, we talk about men's health a lot, right? So we talk about believing in yourself, and there are a lot of times in your life where people kind of drag you down. Not people. I'd say just everything. Life. We'll just say life holds you back or drags you down, and there's always that fear of not having a safety net, and I'm guilty of it. I'm not, by any means, I'm not sitting here saying, oh yeah, I'm perfect. I'm not. I am just here to tell others that there are ways, and there are people who have done it and taken leaps and jumps and skips and runs and whatever in their life, and made changes and pivotal changes, and took a chance on themselves and invested in themselves, and it's worked out. You are one of those people. I truly do believe it, and here's what I'm going to tell, and then I'm going to let you kind of tell the story a little bit more detail. But when I knew Zach, he was working in the bar industry. And for those who've ever worked in the bar and restaurant industry, it's an unfortunate side effect that a lot of your other aspirations get put on the back burner purely due to the hours and the livelihood of that industry, right? So you work odd hours. That's number one, right? So you're not sometimes not going in until 5 o'clock, and you're not getting home until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So normal time, I say normal, your other jobs that maybe during the day, those are hard to get into or think about or interview for or even look into when you're not used to doing that. Number one, that's just a very basic thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Number two, it's a very inclusive, right? So one place might pay you a certain amount, and then another bar or restaurant may say, hey, you're really good at what you do, you should come here. And then you're like, well, I'm not, I have nobody at bar X is, keeping me here, so why wouldn't I try bar Y? Or some of my friends or family or people that I know and I enjoy are over at bar Y, I could go over there, no big deal. Additionally, it's a cash business, right? So getting tips behind a bar is a great thing. That's because nice. Let's just talk about, call it what it is. Sometimes taxes aren't as high when you're getting paid in cash.
Yeah.
And it's just a tough industry, and this is the only way I can put it, to break out of. Once Absolutely. You get in it,
it's hard to get out.
It's tough to break out.
The irony is that there's so many people who want to be in it, and it's like it's all about it's about who you know, or it's like you have to have that experience first, and so it's super hard to get into those locked in, fine-tuned restaurant jobs.
They are.
Which is why some people have stayed in their entire life, because they make a great living.
Oh yeah.
But for those that are ready to get back out, it's like mud.
And I don't want to say, I'm not knocking the bar restaurant.
Oh yeah, I'm not belittling it.
Yeah,
I miss
no.
I tell you all the time, I miss the bar.
Sure.
I miss bartending.
That's not what I'm saying. And there are people, as you said, who make careers out of it. There are some very high-end restaurants where people make well over into the six figures, maybe, 7 figures would be stretching it, but 6 figures easily.
Absolutely.
In the bar and restaurant industry. However, there are a lot of people who get into that, sometimes get run down, and those are, and that happens more often than not. I'm not saying you're run down, but I do remember having a conversation with you. We're friends at this point. We've known each other for years, and not just in the bars, right? So you'd come play poker a couple of times. We've hung out outside of this. It was now our friendship had been years, and I remember you even asking me, you just kind of laid it out there, and you said, hey man, I'm looking for a change. I want to get out. I'm thinking about doing X, Y, Z. And you talked to me about sales, and you talked to me about different jobs that you were looking into. And then you kind of flat out asked me again, this is the second time that I can remember it, and you may think of another time, but you asked about trivia. You asked about hosting. You asked about being in front of a microphone, talking to people. And I remember the reason you asking me, at least the way that I gathered, was, to your point, you still love the bar and restaurant industry. It would get you still kind of into the bar scene. Mm-hmm. You get paid for something you do, a couple hours a day, side hustle, whatever you want to call it. And you're like, Garrett, that would be something. Hey, have you ever looked into it? I said, no, yeah, let's talk about it. And the reason I remember this is because when I remember having you being interested in working with me, COVID happens.
Basically.
That was in my memory, that was 2019, right? And you could tell me if you remember it differently, but I remember our conversation being 2019, because isn't that not right around the time you decided to make your change too, or was it just a hair before that?
No. So that was a little bit before then. I knew that there was obvious changes that were occurring.
Sure.
2018 to 2019 to 2020, I was in a relationship that was allowing me to define what my roles wanted to be, especially as a man in a relationship and a provider.
Yeah.
And I knew that the particular time frame and schedule that I had as a bartender was really not doing
Conducive,
very well.
yeah.
It wasn't conducive very well for the relationship that I had.
Sure.
And I knew that there was going to be some changes that needed to be made. And I remember bringing it up sometime in the fall of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, okay, cool. And then, yeah, I mean, otherwise I had met, the company owner of the business that I'm affiliated with, Josh Staley Productions in Columbus here.
Oh, we're going to tag you at the end of the video. Don't
yeah.
worry.
Okay. Make sure I want to throw it out there. But yeah, him and I had met sometime in August of 2019. I started shadowing by November. And so sometime between that time, I was like, all right, well, if I want to do this part-time, I'm already going to be an MC, be on a microphone. I might as well kind of rehash this conversation with you.
And you made this. So here I was leading into this. So you're telling me it was a little bit different timeline. That's okay. It's your timeline. It's your story, and I want to hear it. I thought it was kind of before, but you had met Josh prior to the conversation, but it was 2019, right?
It was 2019.
Okay, so
I had to jog my memory.
Yeah, that's what I was remembering, anyways.
Yep, it was. You're right on.
And so to his point, he already alluded to it, and then I want you to kind of tell your version, but you decided to make a change. You stepped away from something that you knew very, very well, and you were probably very comfortable doing. You're probably very comfortable bartending. You probably, as you already mentioned, enjoyed the tips, and you decided to make a change. You went all in, and when I mean all in, you studied. You bought equipment right off the bat of your own to try to mess around with. You started mixing songs. You started working with different equipment. I remember you even telling me, you're like, dude, you know how expensive DJing equipment is? And I go, yeah, I know. I'm an MC and I understand. I know. And I just had a little setup. And then you got in with this company. And then go ahead and tell it. But the reason why I want you to tell your story is because what you're about to hear is a guy who went from, I wouldn't even say steady. I would just say safe. Mm-hmm. And took a chance on himself, and now you're pretty darn successful, and then tell the people what you're doing. So go ahead. So you got into it in 2019 and decided, hey, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So
what made you, how about this? What inside you, what was it the relationship? Was that the deciding factor that kind of pushed you into that direction? Or was there something else that you just felt like you needed to make happen?
So I'll rewind for a second. So the first time I ever owned a controller to mix music was actually in 2015.
Okay.
And it was something that was a drunk after-hour bar hobby.
I didn't know that. All right.
So I would actually get home from the bars. I lived really close, so I'd usually skate home and never drive. And so drinking and skating is just as dangerous. But at least it's just me getting involved. But anyways, I'd get home and I would just learn how to mix music throughout the evening.
Okay.
And I mean, when I say the evening, I mean to 4 a.m., 5 a.m. on some nights.
Some of the craziest stuff happens when you least expect it.
But that was the time where I really harnessed in on understanding what music pairs well with each other. I have a really good friend of mine named Adnan. He otherwise known as DJ Show. He was in the Columbus area for a long time. Best friend, lives out in the Bay Area now, but he was the one that really helped guide me and into mixing more. My first paid gig was in 2017 at Hubbard Bar and Grill. Okay. And that was what actually really sparked my initial interest in being like, you can get paid for this. Yeah. This is legitimate money. I remember it was $250. I had a Snapchat reflection the other day. It was a $250 check, and I had said something like, finally got my first paycheck, doing what I love doing, or something like that.
That's awesome.
And it was a really cool reminder because $250 for 4 hours is very minuscule to what I get paid now.
It is.
Incredibly.
Even for me in trivia.
Yeah, that's a small amount. But if you break it down per hour, most people would kill for that opportunity.
Oh, sure. Oh, no, that's great. It is. Let's call it what it is. That's good. Yeah.
So that was when I was like, okay, this is possible. And again, still kind of playing it safe in the bar industry. I did kind of dip and dab throughout a 9-to-5 life, throughout the bar industry. I was never successful in the 9-to-5 life ever. It was it got to the point where the last time I did it, I was like, I can never return to this life. I cannot do it. It's not meant for me. I will rather be a bartender to the day I die, or I'll find something else. Sure. So, 2018, in the end of 2018, or the beginning of 2019 in January, I had a contract that finished up for a job that I was doing. It was a 9-to-5, and I literally walked out on the job. I walked out. I got a phone call from my contractor and was like, your boss tells me that you left. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm good. You can, I'll pick up my stuff tomorrow. And they're like, oh no, don't worry. We'll mail it to you. It was a really weird, harsh ending. I remember the next day I walked back into Pint Room, made excellent money. And I was like, all right, I'll keep playing it safe,
Sure.
whatever, until I figured out the next move. And then that's when I realized that if I wanted to become better at DJing, if I wanted to make an absolute change, you have to decide when to financially bet on yourself and invest in yourself. So that's when, I reached out to some friends and I said, what kind of equipment should I buy? And so then I was told, like, these speakers are good and like you should invest in a bigger controller. And those Snapchat memories are coming through my phone recently because this is around the time where that in 2019 of that year, I was purchasing really big and high-end speakers, and I couldn't believe the amount of money that I invested into it. And I remember I bought like a 12-month 0% financing card, through Chase, and I was like, cool, good. Like I have all this time to pay off these speakers. And then COVID hits. And that's when I started sweating. I was like, oh my gosh, I have all of this financial investment. And it's a small investment. I can't imagine how big independent business owners
now, looking back,
Holy moly. But yeah, so that's kind of what led me from then to here. Like, 2015 was more of a curiosity. 2016 was more of like, oh, this is a legitimate thing, potentially. 2017 was when I performed live in front of multiple people for the first time. And then it's just kind of started snowballing. I mean, it was started as like a granule of snow, and now it's become a lot more than that.
So your first foray into an actual company came with, go ahead and say it clearer and slower. I know you said it very briefly, but go ahead.
So I owe literally 75% of my success to Josh Staley Productions here in Columbus. We have been rated the top 3 for the last 3 years. We have been the #1 DJ company in the Columbus area.
So what that entails, go ahead. And, so that entails not just what you would think of a DJ. You would think of weddings, right? Maybe bar mitzvahs, maybe graduation parties, but there's a lot of other things too. You get booked to bars and restaurants. You get booked to do events. There's a lot of different things that his production company got you into, right? I mean, you go ahead. I mean, you could tell him, but that's what I liked about it.
Yeah. So I think when I started in 2019, it still was very much on the scale of weddings and your occasional corporate events, and it's grown a lot more into the point that we are one of the we're one of the most represented people at Ohio State events, which is huge. It's a great school to be affiliated with.
It is.
And I know that, our guys have done multiple events, at the shoe or, at the field house or somewhere around on campus. And then, my curiosity in the bar industry was more of my own thing on the side. And then I think when I started getting more success, the question started becoming more aware of like, well, why can't we get more of our guys involved with the bar scene potentially or the club scene? Now, quite frankly, to be very blunt and honest, there's not a lot of money in the bar industry as a DJ. You can have a lot of clout, you can get some good free drinks, maybe meet some cool girls, but like in all reality purposes, weddings is where the money's made, which is a lifestyle that I avoided at all costs. It's kind of like that it's like that the old proverbial saying of a dad saying that he'll never get a minivan.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that as a DJ.
So you didn't want to get into.
You're like, I'll never do weddings. I used to just sneer at it all the time.
Yeah.
And once I found out that I could market myself as a DJ and acquire the kind of people that would want to enjoy the same type of music as me, that's when like my whole life changed, because I'm not doing your traditional line dances. I'm not playing your Mambo No. 5. I'm playing like high-end, fun, club-related, EDM festival-based music, and it's an absolute blast. And I have the best couples because of it.
Listen, I have followed you. I followed your story. He's on all the socials. He can tag those. We'll tag him at the end too. You can follow him on all the socials. You've done a great job of marketing yourself. You have, in my opinion, for better and for worse. And I'm going to say what I mean by this. You have rebranded yourself. And when you rebrand yourself, not everybody jumps on board with a rebranding, right? I can tell you firsthand. And what I say by better or for worse, I don't know this, but I can only assume that there are some people, right? As you just heard him say, oh yeah, wedding DJ, right? So there's a stigma. Not even a stigma, but there's an assumption. But what I love about you, and this is why I'm glad you're telling your story, is you're still the Zach that I know. Now, you're more mature, you're more established. I like that. I've seen you grow from the kid behind the bar who was just making conversation to now, I mean, you're getting ready to make a big move, which we're going to talk about next, but you have established yourself enough both with your craft and financially that you're making moves now that you want to make for yourself. And I think that's amazing. You're making a move out west. Go ahead. What brought you to where we are today?
Crazy. It's almost so unreal. So in a week today.
Yep.
This exact
a week
time,
from whenever we decide to post this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So basically, in a week from where we are right now, I'll be on the road driving to Washington State. I'll be a Washington State resident, but I'll predominantly be working in the Portland, Oregon area. I am going to be the general manager of a new production company out there called Paradox Productions. It's one of the main highlighted production companies in the Oregon area and Washington area. We can get into that conversation a little bit more in depth if you'd like to, but otherwise,
you're gonna have to give me all the tags and all the links to
yes,
follow. There's gonna be a list.
Yeah, there'll be a huge list for people across the United States. But it's been a huge blessing. It's something that has been unfolded into the works of the entire 2022 year. Mm-hmm. This move has not just been something that's been planned over the course of 3 months. It's been a whole 1 year ordeal. Mm-hmm. I knew that at the end of the day, moving out west was a non-negotiable. And if there's things that I've learned about what's made me more successful as a person is establishing non-negotiables.
I agree.
You just have to, there's one thing about creating a timeline for yourself, but there's another thing of like being able to bend that timeline a little bit based off of certain factors. I wanted to move out west well before 2020. But as I tell most people, we all went through like a 2-year probationary period.
We did.
We really did. We had 1 year where you generally couldn't do anything, and then you had the following year where we're just trying to figure out like
what to do now,
like learning to walk again.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a weird vibe.
Absolutely.
So I knew that this was the year, and if it didn't happen this year, then it was never going to happen.
Fair enough.
So I finally worked out the right deal with the owner there at Paradox Productions. His name's Justin Babbitt. Fantastic guy. He's been an absolute blessing to work with already, and so. Now we're doing it. We're finally making the move, and I have a living situation already figured out. And now the next big part is in 2023 of March, around then is another huge financial investment. I'm taking a much bigger bite out of DJ equipment and gear and all the things. And I think about it all the time. I get financial anxiety all the time thinking about it. But I'm learning to bet on myself. I've proven that I can have the clientele I want and have the success that I want. I just have to. You just got to do it.
I mean, you're doing it. You're legitimately moving across the country.
Yeah.
We're in Ohio. You've alluded to where we are. I can also tell you that you're the first person that's really has called us out on where we are. But that's okay. You're right. You tell them, Columbus, Ohio. We are witnessing somebody legitimately picking up and moving across the entire United States.
Basically.
Listen, man. I am very proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you. I'm excited for you. I'm going to have to do another one of these we're going to have to do a virtual, we're going to be in different time zones, but you're going to have to get up in the morning sometime. And do
I'm going to build something like this in the
perfect.
house that I'm going to be living
Love
in.
it. So. There it is. So podcasting with Garrett on your spare time.
Because I want to start mixing and doing like Twitch stuff.
I think you should do lives all the time. Yeah. That would be great.
Especially in the slow season.
So I want to ask you this. Before we send you off on your way, I wanted to ask you just one final thing here. I've seen you grow. I've seen you turn your life into what you want it to be. If you were to just recommend out there, I don't want the cheesy follow your dreams and do that. But if you had one kind of major piece of advice, you're the badass of the week, man. This is your time to shine. We'll put all the links and all the follows up there for you. But if you could sum up your journey that we just told the people about, if you could sum up your journey into one overwhelming life lesson, if you want to call it that you've learned, and it doesn't need to be jump off that cliff. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, into the water and splash. Like, what would it be that you feel that you wanted to pass that message on to somebody else who might not be where they want to be right now?
Oh, man, that's a great question.
I try.
It's a great question. I wish you would have
I'm doing it right now. This is natural. This is raw Zach time.
I think the most important thing upon saying the non-negotiable thing, setting non-negotiables for yourself.
I think that was a great point.
That's a great point. I think ultimately speaking, the success that I have right now in my life and moving forward and there's going to be some changes that I make even when I move out Washington.
Of course. But for now. Yeah.
But the direction I'm heading is it's genuinely about who you surround yourself by.
I like that.
Period. It's literally that's it, you. So I mean, like Abraham Lincoln once said, if you want to judge a person by its character, look at his friends.
Yes,
it's the same basic concept. How
many times have I called you out?
Yeah,
I know.
I've been called out. There's a couple people who have really put me in my place. Whether it's
hopefully I never put you in your place. But
well, in a healthy way, just whether it's a relationship based thing or whether it's occupationally or I haven't always been the most eloquent speaker in the world either. So
listen, you've come a long way.
It's really nice to finally see yourself who you always wanted to be. And it's kind of cool. And across the United States, I'm going to learn some other really huge things about myself too. So,
dude, I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see what else you have in store. You have a lot going. You're a badass. You're a badass, man. You're the badass of the week.
Thank you.
And I'm going to do this because you are badass. I'm so glad you're finally over here. I've been asking him to do this for a long time, so he's finally here and doing it. We'll figure out what Wednesday we want you to be the badass of the week. It's going to be posted. Don't you worry. And you will know. You will know exactly when it is. So I say this at the end of every episode. Well, not end of every episode. I've been getting actually, you know what? You're here. You're in this profession. Mm-hmm. What's your DJ sign off? It's like, oh, DJ, no. What is it? What do you got?
I usually say my name one more time. I say my name and my DJ name. So my name is Zach Williams, DJ Z2C. It's been an absolute privilege to hang out with you tonight, which some of you might be driving right now, so get home safely. But otherwise, that's usually what I say, something like that.
All right. Well, I'm Garrett, and I'm Son. I need to work on it. I don't know.
Think about it.
But I like having you here doing this because you
gotta shout out the couple too. You always be like, let's hear it one more time for so and so and so and so, and they'd be like, woo.
Let's hear it one more time for Zach. Stay strong. Keep your bourbon glasses full. Drink it how you like it. I say that a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.